So, this sermon is called, What is a Commission? And it has nothing to do with the extra money your realtor gets when they sell your house. It's an instruction, a command, or a duty given to a person or group of people. Let's take a look at one of the most spectacular Old Testament events where the Lord gave a commission. To do this, we need to go back to Israel in 740 BC. King Uzziah has just died. He was one of the better kings of Israel during this time, but he violated one of the sacred laws, taking over high priest duties, and so he ended up being punished with leprosy. The Lord knows that with the passing of the king, Israel will turn away from God and be punished. Enter Isaiah, who was one of the major prophets, trusted in the Lord, and although he didn't consider himself worthy, so God makes an impression on Isaiah to make sure he knows his commission. It was a difficult mission, since he had to tell people, a lot of people in power, who believed they were blessed by God, that God was going to destroy them for their disobedience. So let's take a look at this spectacular event. So I'm reading from Isaiah chapter 6, starting at verse 1. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on a throne, on the train of his robe, and the train of his robe filled the entire temple. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, Holy, 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 the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. So the throne that the angels and the threefold holy all stress God's ultimate holiness. At this time of moral and spiritual decay, it was important for Isaiah to see God in his holiness. Holiness means morally perfect, set apart from all sin. Let's go back to the chapter. Verse 4. At the sound of their voices, the doorposts and the thresholds shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. And Isaiah freaks out. Woe to me, I cried. I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. My eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. Seeing the Lord, hearing the praises of angels, Isaiah realized that he was unclean before God, with no hope of measuring up to God's standard of holiness. Just like all of us. Verse 6. Then one of the seraphim flew to me with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongs from the altar. With it, he touched my mouth and said, See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin is atoned for. I was barbecuing last night, and I managed to grab part of the grill with my bare hands. So I can't imagine a coal, touching your lips. Of course, God takes care of all the minor details like the pains and sufferings, right? So I'm sure that Isaiah felt it, but didn't feel an extreme burn. So when his lips were touched, he was told his sins were forgiven. And in response, Isaiah submitted himself entirely to God's service. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here I am. Send me." This experience made Isaiah aware how powerless he was and inadequate to do anything of lasting value without God. But he was willing to be God's spokesperson. When God calls you, will you also say, "Here I am, send me"? If you experience anything close to what Isaiah did, I suggest you may say, "Send me." Verse 9. He said, "Go and tell this people, be ever hearing, but never understanding. Be ever seeing, but never perceiving. Make the heart of this people calloused. Make their ears dull, and close their eyes. Otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed." God told Isaiah people would listen but not learn, and that they were beyond repentance. God's patience with rebellion was finally exhausted. So why send Isaiah to a nation that God knew would not listen, but some individuals would listen? Then I said, "For how long, Lord?" And he answered, "Until the cities lie ruined and without inhabitant, until the houses are left deserted and the fields ruined and ravaged, until the Lord has sent everyone far away and the land is utterly forsaken. And though a tenth remains in the land, it will again be laid waste. But as a terebinth and oak leave stumps when they are cut down, so the holy seed will be the stump in the land." When would people listen? Only after they'd come to the end and had nowhere to turn but to God? This would happen when the land was destroyed by invading armies and the people taken into captivity following this time. The tenth refers to those who would remain in the land, or might be the first group to return from Babylon. When will we listen to God? Must we go through calamities before we will listen to God's words? Consider what God may be telling you and obey Him before your time runs out. And I'll leave it there for today.